Hello and welcome to Wrestling at Random. I'm Jeremy Deemer.
I am Adam Summers, and you are in Season 6 of Wrestling at Random, where the theme, as always, is more wrestling than ever. And this week, it might almost seem strange to say that, this is an off-the-beaten-path company for us over the past couple of seasons, but the randomizer has not pulled, of all things, a lot of New Japan Pro Wrestling in recent seasons, particularly more modern New Japan Pro Wrestling. We had the Eurosport New Japan Pro Wrestling under a different name at the beginning of the season.
1995. That was from 1995.
Yes, with Gordon Soley and Big Daddy Dink on commentary. This is something that I think is a lot more familiar to fans of New Japan of the modern era, that we have the finals of the New Japan Cup tournament, April 8th, 2012. So just before the beginning of the New Japan World era, such as it is for New Japan Pro Wrestling. A nearly full show. We'll mention the one match that, for whatever reason, is not included on New Japan World. But yeah, very excited, as you can see from my New Japan Pro Wrestling t-shirt, that the randomizer pulled some golden age, if you want to call it that, 2010s New Japan.
The way the show works is we put all the internet's wrestling content into the randomizer. We fire it up. It chooses something at random for us to watch. It can be from any time, any territory, and it could be a show. It could be like a TV show, a pay-per-view. It could be just an arena show. It doesn't matter. It's all the internet's wrestling content, public and privately available. It's all there. And the randomizer picks the New Japan Cup from 2012. Looking back, you mentioned Eurosport. That was episode 2, so that's New Japan from 95. The randomizer chose 0 New Japan for all of season 5. We got no New Japan. You have to go all the way back to season 4, where we last had a more modern era New Japan. It only picked it once, but it's funny. The randomizer chose the G1 from August 1st, 2012. So 2012, now we are about to cover the New Japan Cup. We covered the G1 Climax. And if you're a Patreon subscriber, if you're a patron of ours over at patreon.com/wrestling at random, over there, we also reviewed a show from Osaka, February 12th, 2012. So this is our third show.
With a Nakamura Naito match, if I'm not mistaken. That was, we are firmly in the...
And Tanahashi Okada for the title.
Yeah, firmly. When Okada defeated Tanahashi to win the title, the Rainmaker shock just after Okada returned from excursion at the Dome 1 month prior. So yeah, and it's an interesting time in New Japan. We're a couple years into Goto as a booker. We have not yet had the formation of the Bullet Club. Obviously, we've not yet had the formation of House of Torture. So,
thank goodness.
Yeah, so there's a lot less of the things that everyone associates with Goto booking tropes. The large stables with a lot of American wrestlers, tons of ref bumps, tons of interference, that sort of thing. We really don't have that yet in New Japan. Everything is built around, as we mentioned, the return of Okada coming back from excursion, looking not that great in his first match back at the Tokyo Dome, but Goto sticking with the plan of having Okada defeat Tanahashi the very next month in February of 2012 to win the IWGP title. That was followed in March by an incredible match, Okada versus Tetsuya Naito for the IWGP title at Korakuen Hall, which in a lot of ways really signaled the new era of New Japan Pro Wrestling. And then the next thing coming up after that was the New Japan Cup, which culminated on this show. We'll get into it with the 2 semifinals of Hiroshi Tanahashi and a pre-Bullet Club Machine Gun Karl Anderson, and the other semifinal, Togi Makabe and Hirooki Goto. But there are other matches on this card. The one that we do not see, for whatever reason, New Japan World works in mysterious ways. It's often a shock when the search works well enough to be able to find something, particularly with the redesign. But the opening match was a 6-man Hiroshi Tenzan and Satoshi Kojima teaming with Kushida to defeat Takashi, Iizuka, Tomohiro Ishii, and Toru Yano. So that takes us to what we actually see on this show at a jam-packed, sold-out Korakuen Hall. It is Wataru Inoue.
Wait, before we get into that, for
Okay.
those who don't know what the New Japan Cup is, the New Japan Cup is the annual single elimination tournament held by New Japan. It started in 2005, and it's considered the second most prominent heavyweight tournament for New Japan after, of course, the G1 Climax. G1 is a round-robin format tournament. This is single elimination. And
yes,
since the 2006 edition, the winner of this tournament, like the G1, gets a championship match. So the number of participants is always funny for the New Japan Cup. It's varied over the years. The lowest number of people in the Cup tournament was 14 in 2007 and 2009, all the way up to the highest of 48 entrants in the 2022 New Japan Cup.
Yeah, so those COVID New Japan Cups were something else. They tried to bring every possible bit of drawing power out of this tournament, which is not the biggest draw as compared to the G1. The G1 is, without a doubt, the number one tournament in New Japan. They run all the biggest buildings, gets the biggest crowds. New Japan Cup, it's a big deal, but it's not, they don't run as many of the big buildings. It hits some towns that the G1 doesn't. But yeah, usually the winner of this tournament goes on shortly thereafter to wrestle for the title at Sakura Genesis, which is probably, you can make the argument it's with Dominion like one of the two biggest non-Tokyo Dome shows of the year outside of the G1 final. But yeah, that's the setup for this. Before we get to the two semifinals, which it's interesting that we actually have the semis and the final on the same night, because you go to modern times and we don't do that. They haven't done that for several years. There's a 10-man tag, Wataru Inoue and Yuji Nagata teaming with Jushin Liger, a basically young Lion Tamatonga, even though he's in the Jimmy Snuka leopard print tights, and Tiger Mask taking on this version of Suzuki-gun, which is Lance Archer, relatively recently minted in Japan after his TNA run and his Vance Archer WWE run, such as it was. Minoru Suzuki, Taichi, which it's hilarious seeing Taichi in this match because this is pretty early on into the Taichi character that everyone would know now.
And come to love.
Yes. Junior heavyweight Taichi. He's so thin. He's got the tear-off pants. He's got the blonde and black dyed hair. At this point, as I said, he's a junior. He teams with Taka Michinoku regularly, but he is hated. He is basically, while the look could not be more different, his character is Larry Zbyszko. He stalls. He doesn't want to get involved. He does a lot of heel antics. And Yoshihiro Takayama is the fifth member of this team. Where he's, this is 4 or 5 years before his tragic injury that ended his career. You kind of forget that he was a staple of Suzuki-gun during this time. You shouldn't forget it because of his long-running team with Minoru Suzuki, but I just don't necessarily think of him in 2012 New Japan.
No, and it's been a while. It's been a while since I saw Liger. My first thing my notes say is, I miss Liger. But Takayama is extra interesting because we reviewed a curated list of Takayama matches over in the bonus feed.
Yes.
Patreon.com/wrestling@random. You'd have to go all the way back. That was episode 17 of the bonus feed,
wow.
Which is crazy to think about because we are
totally
well
forgotten.
over 200 episodes.
It's nuts.
So yeah, this match, Suzuki-gun, they get the heat on Inoue for a while. Taichi rips his pants off, strip it down to the wrestling trunks.
He rips the pants off. He also gets, throughout the early part of this match, lots of "Go home, Taichi" is the translation of the chant, and you could tell when Taichi was starting to win over the crowd when as years went by, the "Go home, Taichi" chants turned into "Let's go, Taichi" chants. I was early. I was early on the Taichi love. I will just say that for those of you who listen to the Big Audio Nightmare, you will know I was early on Taichi.
Took me a while, but I got there, and no one is more upset every time I look at a Windy City Riot New Japan lineup
Yes,
and Taichi is not on it. I'm always disappointed.
100% agree.
We get a fun showdown with Nagata and Suzuki here. Kicks to Nagata's chest, but he keeps sitting up. They continue to beat down Nagata until he tags in Tama Tonga. You mentioned him. He's wearing his Kirkland's Jimmy Snuka era outfit here. And it breaks down. Everybody's in the ring. Tonga and Archer are trading near falls. Suzuki cuts him off from the outside. Archer hits his big move, the blackout, which is like an inverted crucifix powerbomb.
Which was so
And
much better back then. I understand why now he doesn't, because taking that like sitting bump, it's basically like
sure.
the equivalent of Hogan destroying his back and hips from doing the leg drop every night. But when he would sit out with this move, it looked so much better. Nagata makes the save. And then I forgot that Archer uses like wacky reverse DDT as
Yeah.
his finish back then. Definitely something that was good to get out of the repertoire. It was not the best finish.
No, but Suzuki-gun with the win. Standard multi-man opener here.
Totally, which are always fun to look back on when you watch it years later and you sort of forget about, oh, these are the alliances. This is sort of the position that people were in. I did love seeing Suzuki and Nagata go at it a little bit when you think back to, or think forward to the empty arena New Japan Cup, the first New Japan Cup during COVID. That awesome match they had. That you could make the argument during that, whatever 6 or 9 months of empty arena stuff in Japan during the worst of COVID, that might have been the best singles match in any promotion during that time.
During that time, we saw nothing but like terrible stuff. And then that was like the first thing where it's like, oh, this can actually be entertaining. We can actually see a match work in an empty building, but it's got to be like this.
Yeah, you needed masters to be able to pull something off compelling in that setting, and look no further than Suzuki and Nagata.
We have our first New Japan Cup semifinal match. Hiroshi Tanahashi taking on Machine Gun Karl Anderson.
Babyface Machine Gun Karl Anderson, who was so good back then.
How is this man one of the good brothers? How is that possible in modern times?
Money and comfort. I loved Karl Anderson back then. And it was so funny because, like, I was not a fan of him on the indies. I remember going to some shows and seeing him team with Scrap Iron Adam Pearce and just being like, oof, this is not good. But man, he's like the picture perfect example of a guy who went to New Japan, got a ton of reps, totally bought into what they were doing, and got over. He, in some ways, like in this match and during this run, he reminded me of like if like a 92, 93 Steve Austin had been turned babyface, that's what they would have been like. He was so good in New Japan during this period.
And of course, Tanahashi, the ace of the universe, and at the peak of his powers here.
Pre-knee injuries, at least the worst of the knee injuries, in incredible shape. We'll talk about it throughout this show. When you watch this era of Tanahashi, like it just brings back all the feelings I had watching in real time, that for my money, he is the best wrestler of my lifetime of watching professional wrestling. When you factor in the look, the ability to do promos, obviously we don't speak Japanese, but the promos resonated. His understanding of like how being an attractive guy can help draw women was very, very different than other wrestlers in Japan during that time period. It was initially something that caused him to be rejected, but ended up being a huge part of his appeal. His athleticism, and then his wrestling mind. Like, it sounds so weird to say this because of what happened between these two men, but on top of all the other things you can say about Tanahashi, the Fujinami influence, the Keiji Muto influence, he is what happens if you combine Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels in their primes into one wrestler, which does not seem like it should work, but it works so well.
It's back and forth to start. Tanahashi gets Anderson in the corner, hits some body punches, which I loved. Tana off the middle rope with a twisting crossbody, but Anderson rolls through for a 2 count.
Karl Anderson is beloved. And yes, this is Cork and Hall where they love to root for their underdogs. But he is in there with prime peak Tanahashi, and it is loud Anderson chants throughout.
Yeah, and a reminder, this is a sold out Kirk and Hall here.
Jam packed and pre-COVID sold out Cork and Hall. It's not 2,000 people like Cage Match says. That's an exaggerated number, but it's a good 1,750, 1,800, whereas now the most they'll packed in there is like 1,400, 1,500 tops.
Anderson with the first big move, drop kicking the knee of Tanahashi. And Anderson goes to work on the leg. Tanahashi is limping badly, but keeps fighting back with strikes. Anderson keeps cutting him off. Hits a couple of senton backsplashes. Anderson misses a splash into the corner. Tana hits a flying forearm. Somersault senton off the middle rope by Tanahashi, gets a 2 count.
He gets a few boos when he does his pose. This won't be the first time I say this, but like when I talk, or it won't be the last time I'll say this on the show, but you talk about Bret Hart, the thing about Tanahashi that always drew that comparison with me was that he is a master at, on a dime, in the middle of a match, reading the crowd and deciding, in this match, I'm going to play the heel. I know that everyone's going to love me when this match is over, but I will play the heel because this guy's over, and in service of the match, it's better that I play this role.
Tanahashi favoring his legs still. He's too slow running into the corner, misses a stinger splash in the corner, so he's laid out across the top turnbuckle. Anderson with a jumping kick to the head of Tanahashi and hits a running Liger bomb for a 2 count.
Crowd is really getting into it by this point. Anderson goes for his like helicopter TKO. Tanahashi slips out and gets a great near fall off the straitjacket German suplex hold. Loud Anderson chants. Tanahashi going up top, ostensibly for the high fly flow, but Anderson hits a running kick to stop him. Goes for a superplex. Tanahashi blocks it. They're trading forearms up top. Eventually, Karl Anderson hits a swinging TKO off the top rope for a crazy near fall. Everybody in Korakuen bought this as a finish.
This was wild. Anderson goes to the top. He hits a neck breaker off the top for another long 2 count. He goes for that cutter again. Both men are down. They're trading shots again. A sling blade is countered. Tanahashi counters Anderson and gets a backslide for 2. The sling blade hits this time. Tanahashi scoots back to cover Anderson, but Anderson turns it into a cradle, and as Anderson reaches back to hook the leg for the cradle, Tanahashi counters that, hooking Anderson's arm into a cradle of his own and gets the pin. Tanahashi advances to the finals of the New Japan Cup.
Very good match and great finishing sequence. That whole series of near falls and that sling blade into the crucifix hold pin by Tanahashi, it was awesome. He got a win. He didn't need to use his finish to get it. And it obviously Tanahashi is the best in the world at this point, pretty inarguably. But Karl Anderson more than held his own, and the office was paying attention. I mean, you fast forward 4 months past this point, and it's Karl Anderson in the final of the G1, against Kazuchika Okada. A great match that, again, Karl Anderson was cheered over Okada for. The high watermark of his career as a singles wrestler, but he was, for my money, he was on the best run of his career in 2012 in New Japan.
We get the other semifinal match in the New Japan Cup tournament. Togi Makabe taking on Hirooki Goto.
Yeah, these two guys had a lot of history going back in the G1 era, 2007, 2008 G1 finals, Goto winning his G1. It's a weird period in that like Makabe had been sort of one of those transitional top guys between when, Choshu came back to book and started to stabilize things leading into when Goto got the book in early 2010. But like, you weren't quite sure if he was still a top guy by this point. I mean, he'd have still a few more main events after this, but like going into it, you certainly felt like Goto was on the rise and Makabe was sort of kind of right at the precipice of going down the other side of the hill.
Goto is in control early. He's working the leg of Makabe, kicks to the chest. Do not bother Makabe.
No. We should also just quickly mention a couple of fashion corner on Goto. This is the long, wide leg, sort of samurai pants era of Goto. Physically, he looks exactly the same
Crazy
in 2012 as he does in 2025. Facially, he looks almost exactly the same. He moves exactly the same. It's the wonders of never really having a debilitating, injury to his legs or to his back, or I guess he's had some, but nothing that really changed him stylistically. It was also really weird to see Goto coming out with the Intercontinental title when it was a black leather-backed belt. Yeah. So used to the Nakamura white strap that I think everyone associated that with for so long.
That's right. I forgot to mention Goto is the Intercontinental Champion at this point.
Which is a pretty new belt at this point for New Japan.
Yeah, Goto keeps going after the leg anytime Makabe tries to get something going. Makabe hits some clotheslines in the corner, 10 punch to the head in the corner, a Northern Lights suplex for a 2 count by Makabe.
It was always so funny to see Makabe, who like this version of him, Togi Makabe, it was just this brawler, but then he would hit a Northern Lights suplex. It always was funny. Goto with the misdirection lariat that had become a hallmark of his repertoire. He stole that lovingly, I'm sure, from Naomichi Marufuji and Noah. We get Goto uncorking the hard middle kicks, running spin kick in the corner, Saito suplex combination in sequence, I should say. Goto only gets a 2 count, goes for a German. Makabe elbows out. Goto just grabs him again, gets a near fall off a German suplex, and the crowd once again cheering for who you could say is the underdog in this match in Togi Makabe.
Oh, yeah. Makabe hears this crowd. He fires up, and they are trading forearms. Makabe gets the advantage until Goto hits a sick headbutt that drops Makabe. Lariat has no effect on each other. Makabe swats a kick attempt away, and then Makabe kills Goto with this lariat, turned him completely inside out, and he lands on his head.
Yeah, it would have been far better for Goto if he had been turned completely inside out. He gets, I don't know, about 270 degrees through that rotation and lands right on the top of his head. Makabe follows up with what is usually his combination that wins him matches, that won him G1 IWGP title, the spider German suplex out of the corner, pulls himself up, goes for the King Kong knee drop, misses, and we see Goto hit a roll-up that I almost more associate with current Goto than Goto from back then, the sort of Indian deathlock twist into a roll-up, and Goto gets the win. So we've had both Goto and Tanahashi get their wins with roll-ups, with flash pins, setting up a final of Hirooki Goto and Hiroshi Tanahashi, which to this point, Goto, to the best of my recollection, I don't think he had ever defeated Tanahashi going into this final. You had Goto win the G1 in 2008 and go on to, it was either 2007 or 2008, go on to wrestle Tanahashi, where everyone thought Goto would win the title. He didn't. Starting a 17-year run. So, yeah, I guess it would have been 2008 of Goto coming up short when it was time to win the big win in title matches.
Yeah, so great to see Goto live in person in the year 2025 come to Chicago as IWGP champion. Yes. It was just a treat to get to see him work. And that's coming from a guy who was never a Goto guy. This period, I wasn't a Goto fan, but I am now. I'm here.
The thing about Goto that I've always said, I said it on the Big Audio Nightmare for years, doesn't apply as much now because Goto's champion, but I guess it also does kind of apply given the state of New Japan as they were in 2025, is that the fact that Hirooki Goto, and as great as he was and as consistent as he was for that period of time, 15, 20 years, never won the IWGP title, spoke to how prestigious the IWGP title was and how like generationally great all the guys were that were in the mix, that like you didn't think of Goto as being a guy that should get the title because you had Tanahashi, Okada, Naito, Ibushi, all these guys in that mix. So yeah, interesting to see this time period for Goto.
Speaking of the IWGP champion, it is Kazuchika Okada, and he is here to take on Captain New Japan.
Captain New Japan, who, bless his heart, is on the short list of worst New Japan dojo graduates to actually, to actually have a career of some sort. His rating on Cage Match for his career, 2.67.
No lies detected.
Yeah. I mean, his career, when you look at the characters that he came up as Mitsuhide Hirasawa, his real name, as a young lion. He then had, he was Hideo Saito, this crazed, like, basically a much lamer version of what Takashi Iizuka would do. Then he was Captain New Japan. Then he was the Bone Soldier.
So Okada is wearing the glorious version of the IWGP title belt. My favorite by far. It is the title.
It's the greatest championship belt. I mean, to me, the only other argument is the big gold belt. Those are the two.
Sure. Honorable mention to the Winged Eagle, but still not even close to this stuff.
We don't do Fashion Corner enough. I feel like when we talk about promotions like New Japan, Captain New Japan's gear
ill-fitting.
It by design, it's the most pathetic thing you've ever seen. He's like this. He doesn't move well. He never moved well, even when he was young. When he was young, he moved like a guy who was 55 years old. He's big, like he's height-wise, he's the same size as Okada, but it's white and yellow and orange, the colors of New Japan, ill-fitting, Captain America type suit. He would come out with the shield. His mask had like these little like wings on the side that were like very flaccid. Just a terrible, terrible look by design.
This was a fun extended Okada squash match. Captain New Japan does get in all. I assume it's all of his offense.
Yeah, a couple flying shoulder blocks, an exploder, but yeah, that's about it. This is basically training Okada to eventually like do a match on Rampage at some point.
Yeah, Okada does hit a picture perfect drop kick, killing Captain New Japan. Hits the top rope elbow,
which looked so much better in 2012.
My God, did it look great
than it does now. It's the one thing that as he's gotten older, he's struggled with, how to execute that move in a way that doesn't put the pressure on the hip on the landing, like it obviously did back then. Man, like that's just short of Randy Savage is the best elbow drop this era of Okada.
He did miss a Rainmaker, allowing Captain New Japan to put on the Tongan Death Grip like Meng would do.
Yes, because so he used the Tongan Death Grip as his finish when he was the evil Hideo Saito, and then he kept that as Captain New Japan. I also love how like the announcers don't even attempt to try to be like, oh, Captain New Japan, who's this mysterious figure? They just openly refer to him being Mitsuhide Hirasawa.
Okada kicks him in the face, hits a tombstone, Rainmaker, and it's over. Okada is your winner.
This was exactly what it needed to be. Nothing more and nothing less. So from there, we move on to the buffer match. Get the semifinals, get the guys going into the finals a little bit of extra time. It's an all-star 8-man tag, if you've ever seen one. On the heel side, it's Chaos, which you kind of forget that they were a heel group.
Yes, definitely.
This is Shinsuke Nakamura relatively early on in the version of Shinsuke Nakamura that people most fondly remember, the the wild gyrations, the black leather pants, him discovering charisma after being such a black hole of charisma earlier in his career. But
Discovering charisma.
it was the weirdest thing, man. If you were living that in real time and you saw him like in 2004 have the really cool look and like look like a guy who should have charisma, but just didn't. And then he like got sent on an excursion to train with Brad Rangans for 9 months in Minnesota, but he never actually wrestled.
When you think charisma, you're picking up the phone to call Brad Rangans.
Absolutely. And then he comes back and he's got like cool long red tights and he's got a new move, the landslide, but like it still isn't connecting. And then he goes to Mexico briefly and he comes back. Jesus Christ, here he is at Shinsuke Nakamura. He's Freddie Mercury.
Finished product.
And he's all of a sudden he figured it out and just had an unbelievable run from then. Also part of the Chaos team, Yoshihashi, fresh off of his disastrous performance at the Tokyo Dome in that double return from excursion match with Okada. And Yujiro Takahashi, who you could argue maybe had a run of being halfway good teaming with Naito, but we're past that point. The No Limit team is no longer, and that was the end of Yujiro being useful. And their partner, Masato Tanaka, who is not full-time New Japan, but was in New Japan quite a bit at this point, whether it be the Never tournament, the Intercontinental title in the early days of that belt. And they're taking on what a collection of men this is. La Sombra, who, if you're listening in linear fashion on both the free feed and the bonus feed, it's a La Sombra week. On the bonus feed, we had La Sombra versus Volador Jr. in a mask versus mask match from CMLL's 80th anniversary show. Here he is an 8-man team with Ryusuke Taguchi, a pre-LIJ Stardust Genius Tetsuya Naito, and Montel Vontavious Porter, MVP.
So we have MVP teaming with the future Andrade, Cien Almas Andrade, El Idolo, just Andrade in WWE as La Sombra here, and Taguchi of all guys.
Yeah, this is like, he's been back from excursion for a little bit. He's the funky weapon, but he's not anywhere near as much of a joke in terms of how he's presented as he is in modern times. He does some wacky stuff, but he is still like a legit contender in the junior division.
The first thing I note here is that Naito is loved. This man is so popular right now.
Which it's interesting because there's a narrative which does have some validity to it, but that like Naito was completely rejected before he went. He went to Mexico and came back and started LIJ and was a completely different character. He was loved in some places, Cork and Hall being one of them. He was not liked at all in other places like Osaka, which is crazy because then you think of once he started LIJ, Osaka was the LIJ town to this day, but they were the ones who completely rejected him. But yes, here you also have to remember this is just coming off that incredible match with Okada in the same building the month prior.
One other note is Masato Tanaka looking lean. This guy is lean and just shredded.
And while he has less hair now, this is exactly how Masato Tanaka looks physically still in 2025. He's slowed down a little bit in terms of the number of matches that he does, but even into like the early 2020s, you can make a case for Masato Tanaka having several Wrestler of the Year level years in Japan.
This match is pretty basic start. Heat on Taguchi. Taguchi ends up getting the hot tag to MVP. MVP runs wild to everyone's delight. Sombra and Nakamura have a really fun sequence. Everybody pairs off. Hashi misses the Swanton Bomb. Everyone pairs off again, including an MVP Pescado to the floor.
A heavy Pescado. I appreciated his effort here. This match did take me back to when MVP had his New Japan run. Like he had talked for so long, even like while he was in WWE, like he interviews like how much he loved Japanese wrestling, how much he loved Masahiro Chono in particular. I remember being really, really excited for him to come into New Japan, and like he wasn't terrible, and he got over to an extent. But I remember being really disappointed, like thinking there was going to be another level that he could hit, and it was just sort of his levels where he was at.
La Sombra hits a top rope moonsault to the floor. Naito hits a top rope Frankensteiner, and then he hits the Stardust Press off the top for the pin.
You watch this and you see Naito, and he is moving so well in this match. And there's so much of the Muto influence in Naito that like I remember seeing as a young lion. You still see here, just like the way he gets up when he's down off the mat, like all the cool little movement ticks that he had. And then you see him do that Stardust Press, and it's beautiful. But you see those knees hit that mat at that speed and that torque, and you're like, yep, that's why his knees are the way they are. It's the same reason that Keiji Muto can barely walk now in retirement. It's the same reason that Hiroshi Tanahashi has to retire at the age he's at rather than go another 5 years, because he destroyed his knees doing the high fly flow every night. It's the one thing recommendation I'd give every wrestler. I'd give Goto and every future booker of New Japan. If you have high hopes for a guy, do not give him a top rope finisher where they land knees first on the mat, because you are going to lose time off the end of a career, from a guy who's going to be one of your top draws.
And we go to the finals of the New Japan Cup for 2012. It's Hiroshi Tanahashi taking on Hirooki Goto. Grappling early, the crowd solidly behind Tanahashi now. So they've changed allegiances going into the final.
Which is very interesting because, Tanahashi against Karl Anderson, they were for the underdog there. I would have thought going into this, given Cork and Hall type of crowds, that they would be more for Goto. But it does speak to what some of the perceived deficiencies of Goto were, in 2012 at this point in his career, that he, for as good as he was, he didn't connect with the crowds to quite the same level as all the other top guys that he was trying to get to. It's more split than the other matches, the two semifinals previously, but it is definitely still Tanahashi.
Tanahashi works the knee of Goto, putting Goto's leg across the rope and drop kicking the knee in the corner. Goto catches Tanahashi coming in. He hits the Ushigoroshi, where he has him in like a fireman's carry style and drops him John Cena attitude adjustment style, but across his own knee.
Such a cool looking move. It's one of those moves that never actually hurts anybody. But every time you see it done, particularly when Goto does it, it looks like it kills the guy, that's the best thing in wrestling. It
the
looks
art of
devastating, and it's totally fine. Bret Hart would approve.
That is the art form. Love it. Tanahashi rolls outside and Goto right out after him. He posts him.
And women are screaming, shrieking as Tanahashi's face is driven into the post. They don't stay outside for long, though. Back of the ring, Goto continues to work him over with forearms and clubs to the back of the neck. So we've got Tanahashi doing the Tanahashi strategy, which is working over the leg, potentially setting up a Texas cloverleaf, and Goto working over the back of the neck, setting up a lot of his high impact moves.
Goto sits Tanahashi on the top turnbuckle, hits a hangman's neck breaker off the top. Goto's in control. He can only keep Tanahashi down for a 1 count. And they trade forearms. Tanahashi gets the advantage and then starts laying in huge slaps to the face of Goto. These were brutal.
The Tanahashi slaps are great. They are straight out of the Tatsumi Fujinami playbook. It is the Fujinami left-hand slap. I also love the Tanahashi combos. We saw it in the match with Karl Anderson. We saw it here where it's like the forearm, the gut punch, the European uppercut, all in one sort of sequence. So cool.
Flying forearm, and the crowd is chanting for Tanahashi. He hits a running drop kick in the corner.
That's another one of those. It's not a big move, but it's like, oh my God, yes, this is super athletic Hiroshi Tanahashi hitting running drop kicks in the corner.
Yeah, just you had me at running Tanahashi.
Yes, yes.
And then Tanahashi drop kicks the knee of Goto, sending him into a full flip. Goto has to roll outside. Tanahashi heads to the top rope, hits the high fly flow crossbody varietal, wiping out Goto on the floor.
I would say if you're talking about like just plancha variations, a top rope crossbody to the floor. This move that Tanahashi does here, and he did it even up till like this year. To me, it's the best of that type of dive.
Absolutely.
Of anyone. The torque on the frog, the high fly flow, whatever you want to say, part of this crossbody splash. It looks so good, and man, like he commits 110% of it. Like there's no part of him that's holding back so he doesn't really splat on the concrete. This looks great.
Tanahashi back inside as Goto's coming inside. Tana catches him, hits the dragon screw in the ropes, more dragon screws on the mat, and then he puts on the Texas cloverleaf.
Yeah, dead center of the ring, almost a lion tamer style. After I love the combination of the dragon screw and the ropes, regular dragon screw, then the reverse dragon screw while Goto's on the mat.
After a rope break, we get another dragon screw by Tanahashi. Tanahashi sent over the top. He holds on, skins the cat back into the ring, but Goto was ready and clotheslines him as both men go up and over the top to the floor.
Yeah, the cactus clothesline to the floor. You mentioned that whole sequence with the dragon screws, the clover leaf, the another dragon screw. Just wrote down like Tanahashi is one of the best ever at being deliberate without being boring. And I think it's because particularly at this point when he still had his athleticism, he could, at the flip of a switch, turn it up and do a fast-paced sequence. But like it never felt like it dragged when he'd be working over a leg. It never felt like, oh, we're just trying to drag this match out, stretch it out for an extra 5 minutes. Never felt like that.
Goto clotheslines Tanahashi over the barricade into the front row. Goto ends up he limps his way back into the ring, his leg obviously bothering him. Tanahashi outside still. We get a panic count, but Tanahashi is in before the 20 count.
Yeah, barely beats the count. Goto's in the ring, as you said, still limping, throws a hard running middle kick, but it hurts Goto's own knee. Throws it, hurts his knee, so he can't throw that anymore. Instead, throws forearms, gets a rush of adrenaline, hits the running spin kick in the corner like he did in the match previous with Makabe. Hard running middle kick this time. German suplex hold, only two. Goto goes for the Ushi-Giroshi again, and Tanahashi hits a sling blade counter in midair out of that.
That was beautiful, and then he immediately follows up. Misdirection clothesline by Goto misses, and Tanahashi again hits the sling blade.
Yeah, just Goto basically runs right into it. We have a double down. Tanahashi gets up first. Goto reaches up and gets him sort of from the mat, like from his back into like a kneeling reverse armbar. Tanahashi really struggling, like wriggling back and forth to get out, and eventually gets the ropes.
Yeah, Tanahashi was trying to pick him up, and that's when Goto popped right into that armbar submission. He fights to get his foot on the ropes for the break. Goto with kicks hits a running kick to the chest of the seated Tanahashi. That gets him a 2 count. Goto goes for like a brainbuster, but
he's picking him up for, at this point, it was the Shouten Kai, which was he'd pick him up for the like vertical suplex position, and then like in like a pendulum motion, almost go into like a Uranagi down. Bunch of guys have tried to rip it off. Matt Morgan tried to do this as the Hellevator, and it looked terrible. Alexander Hammerstone uses it in modern times. It's one of those moves that like Goto now uses the GTR as a finish, and the GTR is such a setup move compared to the Shouten Kai. I will never understand why he went away from that being the finish, because it just looks devastating when he actually hits it.
Yeah, and it's like a vertical suplex into transitioning into like a side slam. That's very cool move here. This gets countered. into a full Nelson dragon suplex for a 2 count.
And a great near fall, because prior to the high fly flow, this was Tanahashi's finish, and he'd still get wins with it from time to time.
Tanahashi climbs back to the top rope, but Goto cuts him off. Goto with a top rope Hiroshi. A lariat, and still only a 2 count for Goto. Goto picks up Tanahashi, who counters into a roll-up, only a 2 count.
And Tanahashi at this point, much like Bryan Danielson in the mid-2000s, his inside cradle was a legit finish. A lot of times he would hit like a running inside cradle, as ridiculous as that sounds, and get a win.
Goto kills Tanahashi with a headbutt. This was brutal. He spins Tanahashi around, and he lands face first. Still can only get a 2 count. Goto picks him up. He hits the Shouten Kai, and that gets the pin finally. Goto is your winner. He wins the New Japan Cup after 25 minutes, 35 seconds.
This match was great. It would have been, for me, it would have been a 5-star match if it wasn't for the botch of this like spinning face first helicopter bomb. It's another one of these things that I forget, just because you watch so much wrestling, that Goto was trying to get this over as one of his finishers, sort of as his setup. He tried it once.
Yeah.
And that's when Tanahashi got that great inside cradle near fall. And then he tries it again, and it just, my notes just say, Goto hits his tornado faceplant thing, but it does not work. It doesn't work. Time stops. And instead of just moving on, he goes for it and hits it, and Tanahashi kicks out. If that wasn't the finish, why did you go back and just do the same spot over? You did it. Yeah. It looked bad. It didn't work. He kicked out. Why do it again if it's not the finish? Like, I still wouldn't say it was a great choice if you hit it again and that was the finish, but I would at least understand the minds of, well, this is a finish. I got to hit my finish. But it wasn't. The Shouten Kai was the finish. So that is literally the only thing about this match that I disliked. Otherwise, it was great. Both guys were the best versions of themselves that you'll ever see. It was just disappointing because this was while Goto had won the G1 several years prior, this was the biggest win of his career in terms of finally beating Tanahashi, winning the New Japan Cup to be able to go out and get another title shot. And after such a hot match, that finish just felt so flat.
Yeah, the 25 minutes flew by.
Oh,
I mean,
absolutely.
it was so easy to watch. These two have great chemistry outside of the one botch you described. It was super fun, and either guy could have won this match
for sure. And the botch wasn't even due to chemistry. It's
just a bad move choice.
It's a bad move. It's an ill-advised move that there's a million things that could go wrong while doing it. And then in the end, it's just a stupid face plant. Like, face jam moves suck. There's no if you can do like a slam or a power bomb version of that, it's always going to look better than this. So best case scenario, it's a lay move. Worst case scenario, it dragged up. But still, great match.
This is a great match.
And then afterwards, we had the New Japan Cup celebration. Here comes Okada and Goto. They trash talk Hirooki Goto to set up the IWGP title match between them, which shockingly, Goto didn't win.
Yeah, they at May 3rd, 2012 at
Wrestling Dontaku. It's every year in Fukuoka going back to the 90s. This is their May 3rd show. My birthday.
Yeah. In Fukuoka, Okada successfully defended the title against Goto. One last note about Goto. He's both the only 3-time winner and the only person to have won the tournament 2 years in a row.
There you go. And never won the title directly coming off of the New Japan Cup. Granted, that doesn't matter. because he eventually did win the title. So it's all good. He didn't win the New Japan Cup, I should say, back in those. Didn't win the title coming off the New Japan Cup, but back in those early years.
Favorite thing on this show for you?
Oh man, I mean the main event is great. I mean the main event is the best match on this show. Hiroshi Tanahashi and Karl Anderson was really, really good as well. Particularly if you're in the mindset, I think, as anyone would be of, oh, it's Karl Anderson. Like Tanahashi is going to have to drag him to a match. If you don't remember, didn't experience this era of Karl Anderson, you'd be totally blown away. Honorable mention to just like seeing certain guys in certain positions that you forgot they were in, whether it be in stables or positions on the card, like seeing MVP on the show teaming with La Sombra, among others, or just this early version of Suzuki-gun, seeing the little baby version of the Taichi that we've known for so long. Is really, really fun to see as well.
Any worst thing on the show for you? It was a pretty tight show. I mean, it was there's nothing that really stood out to me.
Nothing was bad. I mean, Captain New Japan is the worst wrestler on the show, but that match was perfect for what it was. You could not do a Captain New Japan Kazuchika Okada match better than what they did.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you did it a little. I didn't need to see all of the offense that Captain New Japan had. Maybe a couple moves. Yeah, but no. Otherwise, fantastic show. Easy watch. Like this. This was great. You got both the semifinals and finals together. Yeah, so like we were talking about how great this final match was. Both these guys worked on this same show. So
yeah,
this is their second match of the night. So.
Yeah, no, and we're while they weren't particularly long matches, like they were really good physical matches. It wasn't, just a quick 5 minutes out there.
Anytime we get 2 Tanahashi matches and 2 Goto matches, I'm in.
This was like a self-contained Hiroshi Tanahashi curated list.
It was.
On a free feed show. Speaking of which, we do have curated lists and many other things brought to us over at patreon.com/wrestling at random, where the people who support the show at that tier, or they can choose something for us to watch, they do, and it is great fun over there. We are, I don't know, upwards of 220 episodes maybe over there. It's getting pretty crazy.
Yeah, $5 unlocks that entire back catalog of 200 plus podcasts you haven't heard. You haven't heard us review these shows.
Even if you've listened to every single show on the free feed, this is, I always say, it's an alternate history. It's a complete extra version of this podcast, meaning you and I doing this show. Like there's like 7 seasons worth of stuff over there that you've never heard.
Yes, absolutely. 200 episodes, $5 unlocks that entire back catalog. Give it a shot if you haven't tried it. Check it out. We've got some examples of bonus feed content here in the free feed, but definitely go give it a try if you haven't. We love to hear from everyone, so make sure that you're interacting with the show. One of the most fun ways to interact with the show is via our YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com, search for Wrestling at Random Podcast. Even if you don't consume your podcast via the video form, throwing us a like and subscribe over there helps us work the algorithm so other wrestling fans can find the show. If you do want to see the video version, you can see Adam in his New Japan shirt.
And direct from Japan.
And you can leave comments as well. We read every single one of them. Love to interact on the YouTube channel. And if you just want to hit us up on social media, we're on all of the social media platforms as well, at Wrestle at Random. All the links I described, the entire back catalog of this podcast, all of the links and everything is available for free over at wrestlingatrandom.com. And with that, we're going to wrap it up and we're going to call it a podcast. Adam, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Randomizer. Thank you, Hiroshi Tanahashi. This was a delight.
It absolutely was. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Talk to you again next time.